Hey everybody, Mark Walters of BigFanboy.com here with Patricia Arquette, and I want to make sure I'm saying your name right. It's Ellar Coltrane, yeah, because I don't want to mispronounce that and everything. From BOYHOOD, which is a phenomenal film, and it's almost 3 hours, but it doesn't feel like 3 hours. It feels like it goes by in a blink, which is, I guess, sort of an interesting kind of parallel into the story itself. So the first thing I want to start off with is, obviously, when you approach a project like this, and Patricia, as many films as you've done and all the directors you've worked with, when you hear about that kind of ambition that goes into a project, is there apprehension that comes with that in the beginning, or were you always kind of like, oh no, let's do this, this is absolutely
my
great?
whole body was like, yeah, let's do this. I mean, my son was already 12 at the time, and I'd seen how fast his life had gone. I'd always wanted to work with Richard Linklater and Ethan Hawke, and Rick was a parent already. And then when he told me about this and asked me to do it, I immediately said yes. And I said, I guess I should read a script. And he said, I don't really have one, but these are the changes you're going to go through and the family will go through.
So he had an outline to kind of take you through the years.
Mm-hmm. He did, but he also left a lot of space to see who the kids were going to become, where the world was. You know, we could be at war. Kids, you know, friends could be dying. I mean, not that we haven't been at war, by the way, but, you know, in a different way.
Yeah, and Ellar, do you remember, I mean, obviously when you go back that far in your life, things get kind of hazy, but what's your first memory of when you were approached about this, and do you remember, like, as a kid, what you were thinking in terms of what the project meant to you?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the audition process to a certain extent. You know, I mean, I was pursuing acting, you know, pretty heavily at the time, I guess, and just kind of went to an audition like any other, and you know, like she said, he didn't have a script, so it wasn't, you know, I wasn't memorizing sides or anything. He kind of just had a conversation with me for, you know, over the course of a few weeks and 7 or 8 callbacks, and I don't know. I mean, I grew up around a lot of art projects. You know, my parents were constantly working on things, so it kind of just seemed perfect. You know, it's like, this is just something to throw myself into.
So you got it, like, as you were getting older, you kind of got what was going on. And
yeah, definitely. I mean, there's no way to obviously understand that length of time as a 6-year-old, you know, or how that's going to affect you really, or just what that, I mean, it's hard now to think about the next 12 years, but certainly when you haven't been alive that long, it's a pretty abstract thing, but I was ready. I don't know. It just...
And the other thing I think made it easier for the kids was that we shot about a week a year all together, so it wasn't like
some huge
50 weeks of the year they were having to show up at 5 in the morning, and it's different really for kids that are on a TV series or something like that. It really is a lot of their childhood.
And what were those moments like when you would come back after a year? Like, did it take a little bit of time to kind of reacclimate everybody and get in the right mindset, or was it just falling right back into place?
You know, it wasn't hard because the way Rick had set it up was he would give us a rough draft of the scenes we were going to shoot. We'd come together, we'd talk about everybody's different life experiences in reference to any particular scene, and we would do a bunch of improv, and just this creative process was like a rebonding anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we were always kind of right there. You know,
Yeah.
We had put ourselves into these characters and helped to kind of craft who we are. So it was a part of ourselves and just this kind of reflection. So we always kind of knew right where we were, I think.
It was like a sculpting workshop or something, like, okay, ready, here's our clay, now here's what we're gonna do today, and we just jump right back in.
One of the things I really appreciated, because I myself went through so many different hair cycles through my life, and seeing how your hair changed throughout the years and so dramatically different ways. Now, was that just kind of you and your hair?
Yeah, those were my haircuts, definitely. I think the only time that they ever really asked me to do anything in particular was to grow it out for a few months so they could buzz it off in the one scene. But other than that, yeah, I mean, I called Rick and asked him, like, before I got my ears pierced, and he was kind of like, I don't know, is that something people your age do? And what, you know, fine. It was always, you know, especially as I got older, you know, my personality and my tastes were allowed to be reflected.
Yeah, at first Ellar was cooler than Mason. So, like, Ellar at 6 had like a wallet chain and saggy jeans, and, you know, and Rick would be like, okay, you can't dress that cool. And Lorelei was listening to 15th century harp music, and so there were some times, you know, where they were sort of had to dress in an uglier fashion than they were used to.
Yeah, and you go through a lot of hair changes yourself in the movie. I mean, like...
I know, but you know, I said to somebody, well, of course, Texas in the summer, you just want to get a big haircut.
Yes.
But the other thing is, you know, I think women are like, they grow their hair out, then they get sick of it, they cut it short, then they want to grow it. And also, if any of us, any one character had not cut their hair for 12 years, we'd have some Crystal Gale kind of documentary, a family of Crystal Gale fans.
Yeah. Was there a particularly hard day, like in any of this? Because so many of this, you go through such a wealth of emotion in the film. I mean, your character has to deal with, you know, several different bad choices of husbands, and I mean, was there one day where you guys were just, you found it to be more stressful, or maybe more, it took more out of you from an acting perspective?
Of course, yeah. I mean, there is that, but then when you're also working with kids, you're really wanting to strike a healthy balance for them, you know? So if you have the chops as an actor yourself to get there, but in between there's a big family fight sequence, and in that we were laughing a lot in between takes, and
those moments were exciting too, I think. I mean, because there aren't many big moments of like heavy drama in the movie, or kind of, you know, violent moments, and so the few that there are, it was kind of, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't linger on it. It kind of like, it's almost like surprising in a way, but it's like life. You know, you don't see it coming, and
these things happen, and then they kind of pass.
And then off camera, there would also be discussions about acting and how do you do that, and you know, what are you thinking of when you do that, and so, you know, it was sort of like passing information on to, you know, the next generation and walking them through process and different approaches.
Mm-hmm. And was as far as the story goes and the way that it plays out in the film, was there ever a moment where it was going to go in a different direction, or were there ever scenes that maybe the original idea was to shoot it a different way and it somehow ended up being something different when it was executed, or was it always kind of that same story?
Well, sort of like Rick had a strong architecture up to a certain point, because your life's very dictated by your parents. We're living in Oklahoma, now we're moving to Las Vegas, and you know, your life is kind of moved around by your parents' big choices. But at a certain point, you go to school, you start creating this second system of, you know, social system that becomes important to you. And as you get older, you break more and more away from your parents into your own path. So Rick really wanted to leave room for that, because he could have been a pro baseball player, or anything could have happened and gone more athletic route, and then the movie would have taken a course more towards him.
Yeah. Has your family had a chance to see the film and kind of watch you grow up on screen? And what do they relate from that? Like, do they see a lot of realness in that from your own life, or parallels maybe?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's different for them because they already watched, you know, they watched you grow up in real life. And they were also, you know, I mean, they were always on the set. They were part of the family too. So it has that aspect of nostalgia of just the movie as a movie, and kind of, you know, remembering kind of being around while it was being made. But I don't know. I mean, I think not many of us have a lot of words to really describe it. It's just kind of, we hug and cry a lot. It's very,
I imagine that last day was really powerful, because it's like, oh my God, we've been doing this for 12 years, and how do you walk away from something like that?
Yeah, it was really hard. My last day was my last scene. But I do remember when your dad saw the movie, he saw it for the first time at Sundance when I saw it, and, you know, to watch your baby grow up, and also to see your son do such a beautiful job, and then on a whole other level, just, this is such a human movie, and it's so relatable, this movie, in so many ways, and the characters are all relatable in some sort of way. You've known somebody like this in your life, or you are in ways similar to these people. So I think it's just sort of weird. It's so many things for people that work on this movie to see it. You're just seeing it also, oh yeah, I remember that year, that's the year I got divorced, that's the year I got married, that's the year Ethan had some kids. Oh right, Rick had his twins that year. Ellar's parents split up. Oh right, you know. Lorelai went off to college. It's also that whole memory and history.
Yeah, and even the music kind of like takes you back in time, because you're, oh, I remember when that song first hit on the radio, and you know, it really like kind of jams that thought home of just how much time this is really, you know, consuming and everything. So
Rick did all the music at the end, and
Yeah.
he had a lot of young interns, and he was asking people,
Consulting.
consulting a lot of people about what they were listening to at this time, and then which characters listening to the music you're listening to at that time. Like, he's like, yeah, this song's great, but Olivia wouldn't be listening to that. She'll be listening to
Yeah,
Sheryl
it's
Crow.
contextual. Like the songs that are playing in Ethan's car like are very different. You know, things that no one else in the movie would really be listening to. But it's also very real. Like, you probably would have been listening to the Flaming Lips at that point in time.
Exactly. And Patricia, as a parent, was there something that you saw in this film, like when you see the finished product, were there things that you kind of were able to relate to from a personal level, like raising a family and
Yeah, very much so, yeah. And a lot of moments of essence of my son drifting through and back and forth. And, you know, I had my son when I was 20, so I knew what it was like to be a single mom. And I was close to my mom, and even the grandmother character, and Ethan's character reminded me of my dad a lot. So there was a lot of humanness. You know, we would have this really incredible rehearsal process. Like our producer had said when her daughter went off to school, it was the worst day of my life.
Yeah. It's just such a powerful film, and I don't know what else to say other than you just better go see it, because it's wonderful. And it's really, I don't know if we'll ever see another film quite like it, because I don't think you could do this and have it, you know, relate to people on the level that it does. So
I think a big part of that is Rick's choices as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
He really threw out the whole rule book of how to write a screenplay, you know, that you're supposed to do action at this point or that point, or create drama, or he wasn't catering to any age demographic. He wasn't gonna do any of the firsts, the first time you kiss. Because in a weird way, yeah, how much variety is there in the first time you kiss? It's all surprising and great, or awkward and weird. Okay, we've covered that. These other moments are almost more specific to who you are, and that's more how you remember things. You know, you don't have these chapters. Your life doesn't go first grade with a big sign on it, second grade with a big sign on it. When I look back on my son's life or my life, I go, I don't know what age I was, but we were living in this house, so it must have been between this year and that year.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little blurrier and waterier. I don't think a lot of filmmakers would have done that.
Yeah.
I think it's really satisfying to have those kind of supposedly mundane moments of life like really dwelled upon, because we see like so much weight placed on these, you know, set piece moments that are supposed to like define you as a person, but really it's like that's just one moment of your life. Even if it is impactful, it's everything else that makes up your life. And to just kind of have that given importance, you know, kind of showed as like being a valuable part of, you know, of life is, I don't know, it's an uncommon thing. But
Yeah, there's little moments like the scene when you're with your friends and teasing about, you know, having sex with a girl. So I mean, I've been in that scene. We've all had, you know, there's some moment in this film that we've all been through.
And then when I was watching the movie, because I didn't have a full script, Rick told me he's gonna go hang out with his friends, he's lying to you, but you know, I was seeing the movie for the first time, so I'm watching the movie, but my character's also watching, and I'm like, that other guy seems kind of like a perv. I'm never seeing him again. I'm driving over there. Saw blades, what's going on? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that didn't go to any other darker territory, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
me
a
too.
wonderful film. So congratulations to you both.
Hey.
It's wonderful to see you again, of
Yeah,
course,
you
and
too,
everything.
yeah.
So, and Ellar, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
You should be very proud of this. It's a wonderful work. So.
it's great to meet you.
Check out Boyhood. We'll have more information down below, and it is absolutely worth your time. And tell your friends. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.